Hola, buenos días. Soy Tauno de Finlandia, pero he olvidado casi todas las palabras en idioma español. Tengo que presentar esta en inglés. Okay, trying simple, not so quick English, so that you might get everything that I'm trying to say. If I'm speaking too fast or something, do some kind of signs or throw mandarins or whatever you want to stop me. Or ask questions, what does this mean? And I'll try to, as I said, be clear. We come from far away. We come in peace. And Finland is about, where is the direction now? I would guess that direction about 6,000 kilometers north anyway from here. So the yellow thing in the far north is Finland, and VAASA is about 1/3 from south on that country. To the coast against Sweden, we have about 80 kilometers over the small sea to Sweden from there. Takes 3.5 hours by boat. VAASA is a city where everybody has a small boat. So if the war comes, we just go into boats and go to Sweden. The war always comes from east. It is said that the genetics of the Finnish people is the same as those from the Basque country in Spain, in northern peninsula. And it's said that it is because the Basque people were following the animals after the ice went away during the Ice Age. And some of them then met some people in Finland and left there. And the people they met there were the original Indians of Finland, the Sami. They are currently something like 85,000, 90,000 of them, and they are wandering freely between the countries, Russia, Sweden, Norway, Finland. And they are people who are not requested passports of. So whenever the reindeer go north, they go north. If the reindeer go east, they go east, and so on. They follow reindeers. And these people are the ones from where the Finnish very strange language comes. Except for those 85,000 people, there are about 5.5 million Finns, of which about 5.2 million speak Finnish. And then the 3.5 million Estonians somewhat understand us also. Nobody else does. So this is one of the smallest languages in the world. This is why everybody speaks English. Okay, some more of the statistics there. We are Lutheran, most of us. Quite a lot of people are atheists nowadays. Also quite a lot of international people coming into the country, so there are increasing amount of Muslims, Russian Catholics, and so on. We are people who don't speak much. This is because we are only 16 persons per square kilometer. If you quickly count, you get to something like 300 meters between two persons of Finland, on the average. This is why we invented the mobile phone and the SMS. So we don't have to shout to the next person. About 40,000 euros average income of a Finn. Teacher salary is about primary school about 3,000 euros a month. Secondary school about, let's say, 3,500, and gymnasiums 4,000. University lecturers about 4,000 again, and university professors 6,700, a bit less than 7,000 euros a month. Half of that goes to taxes. We have one of the highest taxations in the world. The situation is not horribly bad in Finland. The unemployment is about between 8.5% and 9% at the moment. Even the youth unemployment of people who are graduating from schools is about 20%, not 50%, like in many other countries at the moment. This might be because of the high level of taxes and lots of public jobs. And it also might be because of of the international approach Finland has. Lots of international companies. Of the 5.6 million, about the 0.6 million lives in Helsinki, and about half of the population lives 2 hours from Helsinki. So the farther north Finland is completely empty, just polar bears and 5 people. VAASA, the university campus area looks like this. There's an old cotton factory here in the corner that stopped working as a cotton factory in the 1970s, and the city of Vaasa bought the premises up. And then the state came in and bought them up again and made it into a university campus. Built some new buildings, but not really many. This is a very small university, University of Vaasa. It's about 6,000 students. And in the left-hand corner of the same picture is my university, University of Applied Science in Vaasa, which is even smaller, only 3,500 students. And then there in the middle of the picture still a third university, University of Applied Science Novia, which is giving tuition in our minority language, Swedish. So we are 3 universities on an area that fits under a hand. And the good thing with that is that we can share some of the big and expensive premises like technology laboratory and library. They are common to all of these 3 universities. Together we are about 11,000 students. But yeah, you have to have 3 rectors for 11,000 students. And ministry says there's too many rectors, you have to fire a couple. What maybe makes, even if Reina says you should not think of the difficulties, what maybe makes this a bit difficult for many other regions is that Vaasa is a hugely international and industrial region. We have lots of companies, and these lots of companies have quite a lot of employees also. They have, all of them, very international operations. They speak English most of the time. So it's good for immigrants to come and get a job there, comparably good anyway. The biggest company is making diesel engines, called Wärtsilä. There are about 3,000 people employed there. Then ABB has about 2,400, something like that at the moment. The third biggest is Vacon, then there's Citec. They have together about 1,500 maybe at the moment. They have increased some. Only part of their people are in Vaasa. They are also in Helsinki and other places. But in Vaasa altogether, there are about 10,000 engineers working in these, let's say they are 15 companies. And those people are typically from bachelor or master level. They are not doctors. Even if they are making international product development in these companies, they don't use much doctoral level researchers because their technologies are so old. Electrical motors, diesel engines, relays, switches to electrical appliances, even just plain cable. So these kind of things can be planned on a bachelor level education quite well. So Vaasa is a small town, 60,000 people. When you walk on the street, you can see lots of students. You cannot see the engineers because they are working all the time. But of these 60,000, 1 of every 5 is an engineer. 1 of every 5 is an engineer's wife. And then 1 of every 5 is a student. And 1 of every 5 is retired. And the rest are babies and normal people. So very strange place. Half of the people basically are doing international things. Other half of the people are trying to learn that. So easy place to be a university rector, on the other hand, because things are going mostly quite well. We have students, we have jobs for the students, we have possibilities to interact with the industries and also with the other jobs that are in the region. In a small place, everybody knows everybody. We just phone them and say, I have this student, he's out of job, can he come to your company and make some kind of final thesis and then maybe get the job there. So it's easy in many ways. It's not really this easy in reality, but quite close. We are one of the smallest countries in Europe, and we are getting smaller. The big generations were born in late 1940s and early 1950s, and the small generations are born 2000, 2005. And this means that every time two persons retire, only one comes from the school to the working life. And this situation will go on for at least 25, 30 years. Because of this, and because of a small home market, because of the strange language and very cold weather, we have decided somewhere in 1990s that we have to work for international markets and international businesses. And that means that because the Chinese labor cost is 5 while ours is 100, so we cannot compete on the price really. We have to compete on something else. And in one sentence, the solution Finland has is make more complicated things. The more complicated thing, the more probably it's a Finnish person who's working there. Big ships, oil fields, power stations, this kind of projects rather than products. We had for a small time a telephone company called Nokia, but this other telephone company took over. Nokia people never noticed that people actually don't want to have a telephone in their pocket. They want to have everything in their pocket. And while Nokia was making telephones, the everything selling companies went bust. And Nokia went bust. There is still a company called Nokia, and they are saying that they will go into the handheld table computers business again within 1 year. But let's see. They are not making telephones. They sold the telephone business to Microsoft. And it disappeared from Finland also, basically. But industrial products or big systems, this is what we should be doing. That then means, according to the Ministry of Education, that we try to get everybody into higher education. Practically about half of the people go to higher education. The other half choose a vocational route. In order to have this level of social security and good welfare system that we have in Finland, free everything, free education, free healthcare and so on, we need to have the money coming from somewhere else. And this means that we have to sell lots of things to the Chinese so that they send us money and we can spend that on ourselves. Yeah. And for this, okay, there's a picture of international innovation policy. I'm a former professor of industrial management, and some of my pictures are a bit industrial. Let's say whole of my speech is a bit industrial. I know there are teacher education schools and nursing schools and so on in VAASA also, but I'm mostly talking about the industry anyway. This is from the innovation scorecard of the European Union, where they compare the innovation activities and the innovation possibilities of different countries. And not talking about different countries, but only comparing European Union average. Basically everything that should lead to innovation, amount of engineers, amount of telecommunication infrastructure, amount of higher level education as a percentage and so on, are on the same level in Europe as they are in the United States and Japan. But the amount of new companies and the new jobs that come from the innovation are much higher in the United States and Japan. The problem with Europe is that we are good in theory, but we are not really good in practice. And these numbers show how much we are after United States to the left and Japan to the right in money coming out of new products. It's about 1/3 all the time, all over the years. So with the same amount of engineers, a smaller amount of educated people, they still make more products and get more jobs. And yeah, that can be one part of the problem that Europe is with the high unemployment levels in different countries. Most of the countries in Europe are more than 10% on the average. Some are 20% on the average. In the Balkans, they are 25 to 30% on the average. Kosovo is 45%. So people go to universities, but they go back home then after that and start to think, what should I do now? Rather than make productive work for the country. This latest reference here, Novotny and her associates, she's one of the persons in the EU Commission for Labour, and she's been studying this education situation, its relation to unemployment quite a lot. And she's saying what Reina is saying, that university people should work more closely with existing employers, existing industries and hospitals and so on, to get a more practical orientation in what they are teaching. And by doing that, maybe the bright new brains that come out from universities then also have directly some kind of possibilities of applying what they know to improve the situation in the countries. The problem is seen to be in the implementation, the connection to the work life, rather than the level of theory and level of academic research. Okay, I don't know if anybody here believes that, but the Finns believe that. We are strange, we are Lutheran. About 1992 or 3, we nearly went past Spain in unemployment numbers. I think Spain was #1 in Europe with something like 19.5% of unemployment, and Finland was #2, 18.5, just 1% off. And we were really trying hard, but we didn't go past Spain. It was not fun. I was unemployed for a year and a half. Spent time with my 2 children. The younger one was about 0.5 years old, and the older one was 2.5. So we were playing lots of things, but not really academic games. And about that time, when the unemployment was so big and companies went bankrupt, so the state professionals, the ministries of this and that, they decide we have to do something now. We cannot start new factories and employ people in the factory floor, making woolen socks or wooden toys or something like this, because all these things that we had already before disappeared to Russia, Estonia, Poland, Romania, to all these cheap countries. They were just closed in Finland, and a similar factory popped up in some other place, Hungary, for example. Nokia closed a factory in Finland, opened one in Hungary. Now they closed one in Hungary and moved to China. So, but this happened then. And at that time, the officials in Finland decided, okay, we have to step up the level of activity in this country. We should be the thinking country, not the making country, because the Chinese are so cheap in making things. So the same idea as, again, this famous product that I showed to everybody that says, designed in Cupertino, California, made in China. The Cupertino, California people get all the money. The Chinese people do all the work. This is reasonably bright, I think. So we thought, our ministries thought the same thing. We should have more higher education, more automation, more orientation into design and planning and figuring out things, managing the projects, collecting the suppliers from all around the world and just supervise things. And that means that more people should go at least the bachelor level of university. And at that time, there were 13 state universities owned by the state, traditional theoretical ones, and there were all kinds of schools of higher education. In Vaasa, there were 2 old schools of higher education. School of Business, that was about 95 years old at that time. And then there was School of Engineering that was about 100 years old at that time. And then there was a 20 years old School of Nursing. And by putting these three together in VAASA, the state created a University of Applied Science that instead of a school-level education gave bachelor-level education. They put 1 year more and replanned all the curricula. And 10 years later, they also got right to give master's degrees, not doctoral degrees yet. This is the main difference between the University of Applied Science and the state university. Still only the state universities that give the doctoral degrees. The model was taken from Austria. There will be an Austrian guy explaining. Yeah, in 2 weeks. So the model for the Finnish University of Applied Science system is explained later. It is very close to the German Fachhochschule, which is an idea of a university with university-level teaching approach in existing universal truths, but the approach doesn't start from a content of science. It starts from regionally understood jobs. What kind of knowledge is needed for that kind of job, or that kind of job, or that kind of job. So the difference lies mostly in the orientation of how the things are selected to be taught, and also in the amount of practice included in the jobs, in the education. All clear this far? No questions? Preguntas? No? Okay, this is how we look like in an Indian attack, arrows going back and forth. The left-hand pillar is the traditional one, where you go from the compulsory schools to gymnasium, 3 years, classical gymnasium, all kinds of topics such as history and philosophy and mathematics and science, chemistry, biology, whatever. Basic courses in all of those. Hi, welcome. And then after that, you can apply for a university place. Not everybody has a university place, of course. Only the best people with the best diplomas can get in. There are about the same amount of student places in both of the university pillar and the University of Applied Science pillar, and they are about half of the population, maybe something like 40,000 places in all these together every year, and then several years of them. Means that there are quite a lot of more people in the schools. The other option traditionally has been to go from after the compulsory education to go to vocational school, where you learn some woodworking skills or knitting skills or whatever, vocational things. And now, on top of that, it was thought that the old schools that would be 2 years would now be University of Applied Science 3 or 4 years. And also from the gymnasium, you can apply to University of Applied Science. About 70% currently to University of Applied Science come from the gymnasiums anyway. They maybe get fed up with the big amount of different theories and want to have something more practical or whatever is the reason, but a lot of the people now come from there, from this type of curve through the left rather than going to vocational schools. The people in vocational schools maybe go there because they don't want to count, they don't want to write, they don't want to even speak much. So they just do things, and while doing things, they get the diploma, and after that, they don't want to go to any school anymore. They go to work, and they make some things, and then 20 years later, they are unemployed maybe, because the things are not anymore there that they were making. But yeah, this is the situation as a total in the Finnish system of schools. I understood that you are a state university. Yeah? We have this University of VAASA in the middle of the campus. In VAASA, this is a state university also. They are traditional in many ways. They don't have much of this work-based learning type of thing. So you don't have to feel unhappy that you don't have much, if you don't have much. I don't know. My guess is that Reina is organizing this because you don't have too much of the work-based learning yet. The same actually happens in these universities of state in Finland, the 13 ones. Nobody has demanded that of them still. But the amount of pure researchers that a small, cold, dark country needs that far north is not increasing. There are, let's take the ABB company that has 2,400 people in VAASA. They have 7 areas of worldwide responsibility in product development. They have 40 PhDs in there. And these 40 PhDs, they work for 40 years until they retire. So there's not really need of more than 2 or 3 every year to replace them. It's not increasing the amount. So PhDs have their jobs mostly in the universities, not much in industry. And then the industries need to have masters and bachelors. And for that, it would be good if the masters and bachelors of the university also would have some kind of connection to the working life. The bachelors especially don't have. They have 3 years of theoretical education, and after that they have a bachelor's diploma, but nearly none of them get any jobs. So they continue, all of them, to master's program, where they have some kind of final thesis that at least connects them to the jobs. There is, in some of the orientations of the University of Vaasa, the state university, a possibility of putting 3 months of workplace practice as 5 credits in the diploma. Then you don't have to take a course instead. Some professors accept this, but not in all of them. Yeah, this is basically similar things that I already said. A lot of these programs that are taught in the state universities could also be in the Universities of Applied Science, especially the master level programs could be either in the University of Applied Science or in the state university. But also some of the bachelor's degrees could be there. It could be so that people take the bachelor degree with the practice and all this workplace orientation in University of Applied Science and then go for a theoretical master management level education to the state university. It could be working out like this also, not like this. But for some reason, maybe because the schools already existed, the state wanted to have 2 pillars of education that are a bit separated from each other at the moment. Okay, then these newer schools that have been existing for 20 years, Universities of Applied Science, of which I'm heading one, small one. We have in very many cases, just the bachelor's level education. We have in Vaasa 3 master's programs, and we have 9 or 10 of these bachelor's programs at the moment. Some of them are in English for foreign people, some of them are in Finnish, all of them completely free of any tuition fees on the basis of Finnish state law. What's that? I don't remember the word. Anyway, on the basis of the law, we are not allowed to take any money of any of the students, which means we get all of our money from the Ministry of Education. Not really all. We have some cooperation with companies from where we get some small money, let's say 10% of our budget a year. But everything else comes from ministry. And is given to us on the basis of last year's results, how many graduates, how many students stayed in the school all day, gaining 55 credits or more a year, which is the official number, how many of them got a job after graduation, and so on. How much research money we got from different funding organizations. If we get 1 million of research money, we will get 90,000 more from the state for that. For one graduating student, we get about 13,000 euros. And for one student who's done 55 credits a year, we get something like 4,000 euros. And that adds up in our school of 3,400 students to something like 17 million euros. And then we get 1.5 million, 2 million from the industry. So what we do is we try to teach similar things as the state universities, but we try to teach them in a way that they are expected to be used in the working life. The mathematics, for example, should not be providing a theorem and then showing how it's done and how it's proven. It should be to tell them, in that company you will have to calculate the volume of this, and this volume is calculated by doing that and that and that. So in all of the topics there should be a kind of practical orientation in the teachers' minds. It's not always like that, because a lot of the teachers come from the state universities. Another difference between state universities and University of Applied Science is that the state universities are part of the state, while the University of Applied Sciences are all limited companies, which means we have higher salaries than the state universities. So we get teachers also from there. We have a requirement that all the teachers teaching in a University of Applied Science must have 6 months of teacher studies and 3 years of experience from the working life. Otherwise, they will not teach for us. The state universities don't have these requirements. No teacher qualification, no industrial qualification whatsoever. Just the doctoral thesis and some publications. And this should also help us to be a bit more oriented towards the working life than what the state universities are. Again, it doesn't always happen. But with some people are very, very industry-oriented or hospital-oriented, and some other people are a bit more theoretical then. Yeah, we give the teachers quite a big freedom, because we have quite a big freedom. The Ministry of Education does not accredit us, does not check our quality. The same with state universities. Finland universities are quite autonomous, so we do whatever we want, basically, as long as the numbers are good. So they say that you are allowed to teach engineering, and you are allowed to teach business, and you are allowed to teach nursing, and you are allowed to teach social work, but nothing else. So they just give us a list of topics. And after that, we start to do the curricula together with the industry as much as possible, and then we start to teach. And in this curricula, there are also visits to the working life every now and then. The master's topic is a bit different from the university master's level topic, because nobody is allowed to enter the master's level education in the University of Applied Science if they didn't do a 3-year visit in the working life after the bachelor's level. So they are 3 years older when they come to master's level, and they have some kind of relation to working life outside university already by then. And also they have to have, when they are entering, they already then have to have a thesis topic. And their topics are selected so that they support the thesis. These are basically, it's said that they are 2 years studies, but more often they are 1.5 years. 1 year of courses and half a year of master's thesis. Okay? Then I took here a theory part. I don't know if it's good or bad. Anyway, this is one older framework, and then we made a new framework with this famous Reina here that looks like this. And there's 3 different orientations in pedagogy concerning the work-based learning. The first one is the traditional one, and then there's some kind of vocational one that's based on transactions, understanding the implementations of the theoretical things in the working life. And then here's a kind of transformative, complete, work-based oriented planning and implementation of both the education content and the pedagogy. And we said that the things that I'm shortly explaining to you are in the middle piece, because they are still mostly based on the traditional curricula from the time where the work workplace, work-based orientation was not so important yet because the universities of state were not going into this applied field. But now the state is demanding them to be more applied in the education, which leads us to be even more applied. So now we are heading towards the really kind of research-based, working life-based orientation in a curricula. But we are still in the middle box, I think, with theoretical curricula and practical implementations added here and there. So this is how it looks like in the format of nice circles. The first case, and maybe the case, which is easiest for any university to do, is what we call company clinic. The VAMK is an abbreviation of University of Applied Science in VAASA in Finnish. Vaasan ammattikorkeakoulu. And AM is ammatti, is a vocation. And K is korkeakoulu, which is School of Higher Education. Yeah, we appointed one person who knows some of the industry and said to this person, you are the coordinator, coordinate this. And that person went to companies asking what kind of interests of small research work they would have. They maybe went to 10 or 12 or 15 or something like this, did an interview. Then she came back to the school, and together with the teachers, they figured, okay, what kind of things could we do? And then they made small leaflets explaining Vaasa University Applied Science third year students, small marketing research projects. And then they explained what is needed, what is done by the students, what is done by the teacher, what is the result, and how long does it take, and what does it cost. And then the coordinator took these cards, I think there were 13 different tasks, 13 different types of courses, and went with these back to the companies and say, now we have this selection. Whenever you need something small done, contact me, I'll contact the teacher, and we'll make an agreement on that we will do this task, and you pay us 300 euros or something. And after a couple of years of practicing, it works quite well. So we have, let's say, it's up to 15 credits a year are done with this method. So some of the courses either include only this work done, or half of the course includes a work done with this method. The students, if they get, for example, an agreement or a marketing research, they go out and they interview people, or they check that or that country, maybe phone the diplomats of that country, maybe even sometimes travel to that country and make a small research what is there in the market. And then they write a report, and then they present the report to the owner or the marketing manager of the company in the end of the course. So they shouldn't take more than a month or two. They are quite small, these projects. And of course, there are bigger projects also, and that is the slide that I took away because everybody has the big projects. The next slide would have been the project. And those are then 1 year or more, and they have often some kind of public money or so. But these are very small, and these are done by students in the classroom as a part of this topic, this class. And the teacher is there helping them. Which means that a lot of our classrooms are empty. We are paying the rent, but the students are not there. They are somewhere else. And now we are renovating the campus, and we diminished 20% of the classrooms, and still they are empty. Because the popularity of this is increasing. The students want to do this kind of things. They think it's okay. Now you explained us what marketing is. You've explained us what public response is and PR work and so on. Don't explain us anything more. Let us test how it looks like in the real life. We get something like 200,000 euros from the companies by doing this in our 4 orientations of education. Clearly, the most, half of that money comes in business. Marketing, all kinds of management studies, accounting improvements and such are quite easy for a group of students to do. Of course, the accounting is the same in the public university and the University of Applied Science. There's only one type of bookkeeping. So it would not be difficult to put this also in place in the University of State. But it's just that they've never thought it that way. They thought, okay, it's enough that they teach the bookkeeping, and then after the students graduate, they can go and test if they learned anything or not. But the University of Applied Science, the idea starts from the working life needs, and thus we need to test all the time. And this is a very good tool for that. Anything more about this? Yeah.
I have a very clear idea of this salesperson. These coordinators, is per discipline or only one?
Oh, we have only one because we started very slowly. And while the companies get used to work with this, they contact the teacher directly. So only the first 1 or 2 visits must be done by the coordinator. After that, the coordinator only signs the agreement. And then the teacher and the company work together, which is good because also the teacher then learns to know what is happening in the companies much more. If there's a person muffling the discussion, then the teachers know nothing, the coordinator knows everything. But the coordinator needs to be there partly to put this thing to a start, to make these product cards, the presentation material, and then to go first time into this company. But then after that, when the company knows what to do, then they can contact the teacher. There are lots of these companies, no, not really lots, but several of these companies order the same job every year. So they phone and they say, can we have the same as last year, please? And then they just sign the agreement, saying that this class with this teacher will do this thing, and it will cost 250 euros or something.
At least all the people in the class working in the same...
Yeah, mostly yes, yes. So often they have, then at the end of the class, they have 3 or 4 solutions. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then they present all the 4 solutions to the company owner, manager. So in this way, the theory is similar to all of the students, and basically the skills that they gain are also similar to all the students. If you put half of the people doing this and half of the people doing something else, then there's a kind of 2 different levels of skill in the end. So typically they are all in the class doing this. The projects, the next slide that is not here, that's more kind of selective. We maybe have only one project which only has money for 3 people. So we choose 1 student, 1 student, and 1 student. And then we pay salary to them also. From this job, they don't get salary other than credits. Yeah? Okay? Then the basic, okay, the projects are still there.
Yes, the placement.
Placement is, okay.
Placement we have here.
Okay, no problem. The placement is then the slide that's not there. The projects are there. But I already nearly explained this also. So they are something like 100,000 euros, let's say, each project. There's typically a teacher who's given half a year off from the teaching to do the project. So the teacher is some kind of project manager. And then there are a couple of students in there getting credits and also often salary. And we are applying for these small projects so that the teacher has the idea. The teacher says, I want to do a project with Nokia or with Wärtsilä or something. I want to do a project in engineering developing a new turbocharger for the diesel engine. And then he applies money, and we apply money for the more technical-oriented projects, typically from Finnish National Technology Agency, TEKES, or from European Union, and for the more humanistic areas of business and nursing and so from different regional funding sources. They are much smaller than the TEKES. They are much less than 100,000 typically, or then from the European Union. And when the teacher makes the application, again, he has a coordinator to help him. We have 2 coordinators now. We have actually 3, but 1 is on maternity leave, and a director of research. And these people help the teacher in making the application, because the coordinators know how to make funding applications. while the teacher knows how to make a turbocharger, the technical solution or the business solution. And then these are then done a lot by the students, and they typically connect their final thesis work also in these projects. So this is the same as the next slide that is there, the final thesis work, but this is for 3 or 4 people, while the final thesis in the next slide is only for 1 person at a time. There's a small list of what we have done. I think the one I remember best is to make a interactive TV system for elderly people. The other one was to have a system of listing the emergency situations of different public places for the Fire and Rescue Authority of VAASA. Marketing menus, such for restaurants, are typically projects like this. There was a project of 150,000 euros for developing a regional menu from which the restaurants in the region could choose a couple of food stuff pieces in their menus, and this was kind of a year of recognition of the regional food, which was paid by the regional authorities, probably with your money, European Union money. Yeah, all kinds of smaller and bigger things. We sometimes also buy these ourselves. We get maybe 25% support from some authority if we are improving our own emergency system. We have a system that directly if somebody is shooting in one corner of the university, everybody gets an alarm in the telephones. Everybody has a job telephone in the pockets. Must be on all the time. So they get an SMS and a loud voice saying, now you have to check the telephone. And then they check the telephone and say, okay, in class C 205 is a guy shooting people. So let's run this way. Yeah, this is one of the, maybe the last, no, it's not even there. One of the projects that 3 students were making. They were composing this. Okay, bigger projects, no problem. And then we have the work placements, which work for hospitals, social work, business, so that they go every now and then, a couple of weeks to the companies. And in engineering, they go the whole summer because the companies don't want to take anybody for 2 weeks or 1 week. The jobs are so technical, often a bit dangerous, so they only want to have students for 4 months. So for engineering, we finish 1st of May, the teaching, and then the students go to work to these companies, and then they come back in 1st of September. But you had this also. Okay. And then the 3rd idea or 4th idea that we have in our curricula that aims to make the students understand what all the theory business was about before they go to the company for work. And this works in the same way basically as the company clinic. But these are bigger problems to be solved nearly individually by one person, and each of us, our faculties, has a contact person for this. A coordinator again, let's say. He's not really a coordinator. He's a teacher that has 10% off of teaching to take these contacts from companies and make these contacts to companies, only by telephone mostly. Of course, the students make the most of contacts to the companies. They are told, okay, now it's time for you to make a final thesis. What kind of job would you like to have? And the student says, I want to go to work for the Social Security Office of the city of Vaasa. Okay, you go there, you ask the people there what kind of final thesis possibilities there are, and then you choose one. And then you ask them to phone our coordinator. And then the coordinator and the city of Vaasa again sign an agreement. Okay, we take care of this student. We hereby promise not to put him to cook coffee only, but to also make something where the relevant theory is implemented. And then they write a thesis that looks like a thesis in the state universities, where they have theory base, then they have methodology, and then they have the application solution, whatever, and they have some discussion and references. So they look like a bachelor's thesis. They are a bit longer than the bachelor's thesis in the universities of state because there is the application. The methodology and the implementation must also be reported, while the state universities only report the theory based on the references because there's no implementation in the bachelor's thesis in there. So let's say 60, 70 pages of something, improvement of materials handling in the big warehouse of the big El Corte Inglés, whatever. And then they explain what are the main principles of materials handling, how they can go there and make an analysis, what analysis they do there, how they did it in practice, how many days they spend there counting packets of sugar and coffee, and then what they now suggest to El Corte Inglés to improve the situation. From this, typically, the student gets some money, not the school. So actually, the students, while they are sitting in our premises, they are working for the company. And typically, the starting level at bachelor's level students are 1,500 euros a month or something like this. 1,000, yeah. 1,500. When they graduate, they get 2,000, but in this level, before graduating, it's something like 1,500. The social work, nursing is a bit less, and the engineering is a bit more. But that level. And there's one teacher with a PhD, always appointed as the supervisor of each of these. So every teacher has to supervise maybe 10 students a year or something like this. And the agreement is signed so that it includes the signature of the student, the signature of the company, and the signature of the PhD, the doctoral teacher of doctoral level. Then they agree that this is what they are doing, and they are keeping everything secret in case there's some secrets, confidential things in the material they get from the company. And yeah, that they pay the salary to the students, if they pay. Not all of them pay. Again, the social nursing part is the deviation. If they pay less, and not all of them even pay. For some hospitals, we have to pay them so that they take our student. Okay? Yeah.
About the intellectual property of the products and student.
Yeah. If it is something that has really IPR, then that is agreed on in the agreement. Typically, it is said that the school owns it, but if the company wants to have it, they can get it for free. That makes it possible to publish, because if the company owns the IPR in the thesis, then we cannot publish anything. So the agreement says that the school owns it, but the company can take it if they want. Sometimes they even pay for that. There's very little IPR that would be really beneficial to anybody in the works of all the universities in the world. I think the only university that's got rich on something that they invented is the University of Florida with the Gatorade sports drink. That's about the only thing that brings money to the universities. Everything else is sold quite cheaply. And yeah, maybe one department gets money, but not the whole university. Anything else about this? No? Yes?
All the students have the chance to be involved in the project?
90% of them do, yes. All have the chance, but 10% either don't want to, or we invent something internally in our school or so. 90% of them do this, let's say. And that's also very good for the jobs afterwards, because 97% in year 11 got a job within 1 year of the graduation in our school, which is third highest in Finland. Of course, the industrial environment makes it possible to have lots of projects, makes it possible to have good employment situation, makes it possible for everybody to phone some company. There's always somebody who wants to do something small or big. So this might be a situation that is not the same everywhere in Finland. And the number being the third best in Finland maybe shows that this is the second best area or the best area in Finland to do this kind of things. The 4 best ones, okay, 4 is that much. 4 best universities in Finland in this employment thing are ours and the Novia, also in Vaasa, and then 2 schools in Helsinki, which is the capital. So it might show that it's a difference of region. But in our situation, it's very good. The students, nearly all of them, just phone somebody or visit the company, and then they get a project from there, even the salary often. So we don't have to help really many. And if there are some that don't find anything by themselves, we try to help. Not always that helps. Then we put them to do some more theoretical things or do things in our laboratory. But yeah, 9 out of 10. Yes?
90% of employment seems useless.
Yeah.
It's a nice figure.
Yeah, but this...
I would like to know, what is we can compare this figure with other universities and also the rate of unemployment in Finland.
The rate of youth unemployment, which means the graduates, is about 20. Which means there are some places where there's much less than 97. Also, this 97 is from year 11, so it's 4 years old now. I think it's below 90 at the moment. But yeah, anyway, it means that a lot of our students that come to our school also get a job. And we have been trying now the last year to improve this by making even more company-oriented curricula. So 90 is nice, but it should be 100. Because we are not working for theoretical education. We are working for people in jobs. So our aim is 100. Even if we never going to get it, we probably get lower than 90 again next year, even more. The situation is going worse in Finland also. The employment is going down. Not so much in Vaasa region, but in Finland in general. So now what we did, we start again from the engineering, because this is the biggest employer in Vaasa region. And then we continue with nursing, social work, and business last. And then even after that, administration, which I think is going to be interesting. The engineers are going to do the following. All of the departments, for example, electrical engineering, environmental engineering, they are having a meeting. They are deciding what are the 3, 4, 5 most important companies that are taking people from our school in this region. Then they select 2 or 3 teachers that go there and interview key people. The teachers ask, okay, how should we improve? We are doing this now, what do you think of this? What kind of new job positions are you going to have in the next 5 or 10 years and so on? Then the teachers go back home. They report to the meeting of the department, where there's 2 students also, always. And then the meeting of the department decides on what changes they do in the curriculum to make it more attractive for these 5 companies. Might mean that all the other companies find the people less attractive. But you have to choose something. It's a kind of strategic orientation, we say. So in order to save time, to save us from the stories that the teachers sometimes tell, that this is too difficult a task, this is nearly impossible to go and interview everybody. So we say, okay, don't interview everybody, interview 5. And then they go and interview, and then they make this. And now we are demanding them to have the new curricula presented in May. And the we who are demanding is the rector, the head of the faculty, and 5 selected company managers. So these 7 people will be listening and nodding or saying, no, you are not close enough. You have to improve this and this and this. So if I understood correctly, the English faculties are doing something like this company or work-based oriented curriculum planning, more or less. And this is what we are going to do now also. Change the philosophy from making people understand how a formula came into being to make them understand how this formula is being used in those 3 companies, so that they learn precisely those calculations that the companies need. Okay? We will continue now with the social healthcare. We have a consultant, outside strategy consultant, running these workshops. It becomes too much like the rector. If the rector would be running those, then I would say, okay, you are not doing this because I would not do this myself. The consultants are much better in giving them free hands. But I'm there to demand the end result. So if you don't have the end result in 1st of May from the engineering, then I'm not going to like you anymore, or something like this. In the next year, after these 2 first faculties are done, we have the business faculty, and then when the business faculty gets started, we have a combination of these curricula thrown to the administration people and say, okay, this is what the faculties are going to do. How can you change your work so that you can help them? And then after that, we have the new strategy of increased work-life orientation run through in the whole university. The strategy was decided by our board of directors October last year. Okay? Anything more about this? Yes?
I wonder if the students have practical periods in the companies as
Yeah.
individual
Yes.
way, and how they combine these kind of projects in this period. I mean, because in that period they are alone with the supervisor.
Yeah, the practical placement is different from these projects. These projects are done within the class, let's say. Both the smaller projects are done within a class, and for the bigger project, we empty a whole class and put these 3 students working here with all their books and things they need to have. But they don't typically do this in the workplace. It is work-based, but not workplace. While the placements are workplace. They go there and they do the tasks that the head nurse or the manager of production are giving them, and they try to use all the theoretical knowledge they have from the memory often. But in these projects, they have all the books in the library and all the machines in the laboratories, and they can do the things inside the school. And they only deliver the final report to the company. If we would be in that company and we would have the same problem, this is how we would solve it. And our teacher says this is the correct way. And 250 euros, please. So this is maybe the biggest difference between the placement. The placement periods are in the schedule. And for the hospital nursing, there are quite many. There may be 5 of them. A short one in the summer and 2 short ones in spring, 2 short ones in the fall. While the engineers have 4 months in the summer. And in that time, no teacher will disturb them much. Maybe phone once and ask, are you still alive? And then in the end of the placement, the student gives a report to the teacher. This is what happened. And then they discuss the teacher discusses directly with the person who was responsible for the student at the job. Do you think this went okay? And if the shop foreman or the head nurse thinks it went okay, then they sign the credits to the student. But it's quite individual work by the student in the workplace, the placement thing, while all the others are led by the teacher. Okay? I think this is about my minutes in fame in Spain. If there's anything you want to ask, you can ask now. You can ask within the next hour or so, or whatever. If you don't have anything to ask, take some coffee and some cookies and have a good time. Yeah?
Just one small question.
Okay, no problem.
Which is the average number of students that you have per class?
First year is big. They have about 60. Yeah, big for us, not big for everybody else. I remember in the state university when I had the first year class, I had 350. I didn't see all of them. They didn't see me. This slide was about the size of North Korean flag. And they maybe saw that, but not me. And this is required, basically, to have this kind of workplace-oriented approach. You cannot have 350 students solving a company project. And we have these 60 still to the next second, third, and fourth year. So they are 30 people, 40 people, typically in the groups that are doing these projects. And for the big projects, then we select 3, 4, 5 students only. But these company clinics are done by, let's say, 30 students, a class of 30.
And any good example of company clinics related to engineering?
There's certainly many, just have to remember one. It's gone the same way as my Spanish words, I think. There was a competition, a machine-making company that makes big machines that press holes in metal, sheet metal, so that you can make all kinds of these kind of things. Maybe these holes, for example, could be pressed by that machine. You could put in a sheet metal 3 meters times 1.5 meters, and it hits holes in there and bends places. This kind of automated company. And they asked 2 student groups, one from us and one from the University of VAASA, to try to figure out what metal fabricating shop of the future would look like. Not only the machines, but also the machine-human interface. Does there need to be a big palm tree, like in your university in the corner somewhere, and so on. So they got 6 or 7 of these answers, maybe 8. And the 2 best ones were presented in the International Metal Making Machine Fair in Italy. Student jobs of University of Applied Science of VAASA. This is the same approach as the Modena University is using with Ferrari. They also put their students to do all kinds of cars designs, and then they present them in the fair along with the actual cars. So this company has a daughter company in Italy, and they got the idea from there. So they decided, okay, let's call the universities and see what they can do. Without having too much of experience of these shops, they went there, they stayed there for 3 days, looked around, tried to understand, tried not to put their fingers in any machine. And then they went back home and they used the drawing boards and CAD computers, and then they make all kinds of plans and drawings and mock-ups of this kind of future metalworking environment and present it then to the company. This is maybe the nicest example I remember now. Yeah?
And could you explain a little bit more about assessment in this kind of projects? I mean, if it's a collective...
Yeah, it's discussion between the company manager and the teacher. And then a kind of paper saying that all of these students, they guarantee that all of these students were working in the project, because they are let by themselves quite a lot. So there's no other way of checking that everybody has their hand somewhere. But this is done like this. So in the end of the project, when the students present their solutions to the company manager, after they go away, the company manager and the teacher then discuss which one is the best, where that theory is implemented in the most intelligent way, and they get the 5, and then the not so good get maybe a 3 or 2 or something like this. But they decide by themselves. By law, the teacher must always make the final decision. No other person can have public credit-giving responsibility. But of course, the solution, the goodness of the solution partly is seen by the company manager also. So they are discussing themselves into these credits.
I understood all the students in the group have the same mark.
Yeah. If not, a big amount of the group say that this guy didn't do anything. But if the paper says that we guarantee hereby that everybody was present every time we did things, and so they keep this kind of small EU type of papers that today we develop the solutions, these people were present. And if somebody is not present 1/3 of the times, then the credit is 1/3 less or something like this. But you are really required to start the whole course from a competence rather than a theory content. And this shows the competence. This doesn't really show the theory content. And maybe that's the difference between the University of Applied Science approach and the State University approach, where they still have the theory content list. You have to at least hear of these things once, while we have to have a final competence. We have, I didn't have it here, we have a nice glass thing from European Union, saying that we fully comply with the ECTS, whatever it's called. ECTS is called, yeah. European Credit Transfer System requirements in our course descriptions. All the course descriptions, every course starts with the competence that they will have at the end of the course. Then it says also how it will be evaluated, how it will be taught, how many hours, how many student self-work hours, whether there's a company clinic or not. So this is possible also in European Union, the ECTS system, to have this kind of practical oriented courses. They accept them, which I think is good, because the whole Bologna idea started with competencies and competence levels rather than credits given to people who are memorizing some books. Okay, anything more? No? Yes?
According to what you've been explaining, I think that the culture, it's a really key point. I mean, the culture of the companies that see the university as a partner, isn't it?
Yeah, that must be there, yeah, sure. Which means that we have to have some kind of discussion with them every now and then. And one of these mechanisms is that every department has an annual coffee meeting where they have 10 people from the industry coming and having coffee and discussing the curriculum. It's kind of internal board of the department. But they have to know the people, otherwise it would be difficult for anybody to just phone somebody at the random and say, now we have some small task. And we have the coordinator, of course, they can phone that person. And then they can discuss the things with the coordinator. But very often they then start to know the teachers directly and discuss with them. We also have one more coffee session twice a year with the project directors of the biggest companies. And we have coffee with them and we discuss their projects. And we ask, would it be possible to one of our teachers to be a part of your project for a month or two? And every year a couple of teachers go to Guatemala or San Salvador or maybe Castellón, La Plana, to do a project with the company people so that they get some kind of knowledge of what the companies are doing nowadays. They all have the 3 years obligatory company practice, but for some people it's 20 years ago. So the company is maybe still there, but it doesn't have the same name, nor the same products, nor the same technology. So it's important to have them in some kind of communication with the companies and with the other workplaces. I always talk about companies, but they're hospitals and city of Vaasa and whatever, big employers.
How do you assess the research activity of the professors?
We have two indicators that are given to us by the Ministry of Education. One is how much research grants from the finances we get, and the other one is how much publications are published by the teaching staff. And those two numbers we give to Ministry of Education every year, so we can also check them ourselves. But in the University of Applied Science, the main thing is that the students do the work. So the most important number is this: 90% of our students are doing something for the companies. And 95 and 97% of our students graduate. They are more important than the research activity of the teachers to us. It's always a teacher leading the group of students, but the students are the important people.
But still they have to publish also?
No, they don't have to. No. They can agree in the department. If one person wants to publish, they give him or her less teaching, and then he does the research, publishes. Yeah. But this is kind of for all of these faculties, faculty level number. And then they can agree in the faculty who is going to do the publication this year. Yeah.
As an average, how many credits do each teacher have every year? Every academic year?
We don't really have a number of that. They are quite different also, because the total number of credits would be the credits times the students. Yeah, but the groups are different also. The engineering and business is much bigger than the nursing, and the nursing is twice the size of the social work. So we don't count it like that, but every student should be given 60 credits a year. But that means that a group of students that follow the same should have 60 credits a year. And a teacher thesis about half of the time, a bit less. So maybe 25 credits or something like that would be the calculation done in the head. Between 20 and 25 credits per teacher a year. Maybe 4 courses, 5 courses on a course level. The courses are in the ECTS system typically run down to 5 credits so that they are big enough but not too big. Yeah? Coffee, anyone? Yeah. Welcome. Ladies first.